All right, thanks, Callan, for joining me on this CMDB Health overview. This is going to be a good session to talk about how we improve our customers' CMDB Health. I'm Mark Bodman, Senior Product Manager here at ServiceNow.
I'm Callan Bond. Yeah, and I'm a Senior Program Manager here at ServiceNow. Yeah, Mark, great to be with you here today. And like you said, we have some great content. We're going to be talking a little bit just about CMDB Health at a general high level. And then really, we have a couple of great demos to show today on ways that you can see how your CMDB is doing and how that health impacts the value you get out of your ServiceNow instance. So we're going to look at two different ways that you can get some insight into your CMDB Health. The first is the CMDB and CSDM Data Foundations dashboards. And I'll be running through those today. And then Mark is going to talk about the CMDB Health Dashboard as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people know about the CMDB Health dashboards, but they not know about the one you're going to be covering there, Callan, right? I mean, the Data Foundations dashboard, because that's downloadable in the store.
Yeah, it's relatively new. We've got a version 2 that just dropped a month or so back in August of 2022 here. And yeah, there's tons of great insight you can get into that. So we're going to talk about both today.
Great. Well, let's get into it. So yeah, first of all, I want to kind of talk about the 3 pillars of excellence for the CMDB. And I call it CMDB Plus because we're tackling more than CI records in a lot of cases. And we'll be expanding this ingestion as we create more service graph connectors. But the 3 pillars are ingesting information from existing sources of data that you have about your environment. The second pillar is all about the insight that data gives you. And those are operational processes, but also planning processes and doing reports and metrics, and be able to use our products that use that data in some interesting ways, from operational purposes, planning, and everything in between. The last part is really the most important part, is really the governance and health of that data to support both of those sides. You need to be able to govern the ingestion information to provide the folks that need the information to make decisions and to run our products on the platform. And so governance and health is all about ensuring there's healthy data there and that you have a lifecycle process.
All right, so we're talking about CMDB Health today, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot of different metrics, and there's some effort involved in making sure your CMDB is healthy. And so why is that important? You don't want to do it just to have a nice bar graph that says you're at X%. And we have done a lot of analysis on CMDB Health scores and other results that our customers get, correlating their health score to other metrics. And we can see here some key ones. Customers who have a healthy CMDB resolve high priority incidents faster. They've got fewer high priority incidents and they fulfill requests faster. And we can see some other ones here as well. Changes tend to go faster and more smoothly. Vulnerabilities have lower age, and certainly lower age on critical ones. And we see incidents get resolved by problem, and sort of great benefits across the board. And you might look at this and think it's limited to ITSM, and the easiest ones that we have to measure are certainly in the ITSM space. But CMDB Health is a key across the platform for a number of our products. They rely on the CMDB, and to get the most value out of those, you need a healthy foundation.
A couple of things, Callan, that I thought was interesting is how important this is to things like integrated risk management, and also planning. Like, I came from the ITBM, now SPM business unit, and this information is critical for planning a change or a data set in migration or whatever affects your IT estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see even with in the Data Foundations dashboards, we start to get into this CSDM world a little bit as well there, and to see just how key certain parts of your data that resides really in the CMDB is used and reused across multiple modules, and being able to measure and make sure you're doing that sort of in the way that all of those programs and applications on our platform expect the data to be there. It's just growing in importance, and being able to make sure that you're doing things sort of the right way that the platform expects them to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing on this slide, I think these metrics are great. These are based on our customers. Is that right? We've done an analysis and we kind of compile these metrics based on our own analysis of our customer base.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And these are, and when we go into the dashboards later, these really are a correlation based on the metrics that are in the data foundations dashboards. And so, yeah, we run that across our, internally across our production instances of our customers. And you can see with the little asterisk down below, it's based on 9,000 production instances. So there's a lot of data crunching to get these correlations set. And this is definitely real world data. And so we were quite interested even in, internally to see these correlations and just realize how important this health really is.
Yeah. So of course we don't publish any of that customer information. This is just an aggregation score. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. We don't know any of that. It's all just pure rolled up numbers.
Yeah, I like this slide there, Callan, because it does kind of break down how important that shared CSDM, CMDB data is to each of the vertical business units that we have on the platform. These are all, of course, ITX business units that use the CMDB in some interesting way. My favorite is probably IRM, GRC, because in the integrated risk management, if you don't have good data, you don't know what you're even looking at from a risk application point of view. What applications do you have? What servers do you have? Where are the risks? And without good quality data, you're sort of blind in that risk space. But it goes into all the other areas. And you can see some are very high and critical, and some are less critical. So it's really a variation of the dependency on the CMDB and the quality of that data. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, and you'll see when we look at again at the data foundations dashboards, which I'm probably a little bit more familiar with my personally than the health dashboards, but the number of metrics that we have in those, some of them are very specific and very applicable to these different verticals. And so, if we think of IRM or ITAM, even we look at things like how is the location data on configuration items, CIs in the CMDB, and is it, do we have duplicate locations, or are we capturing asset numbers on hardware and things that we know are sort of best practice or things that really are critical in order for ITAM, for example, to deliver value, and it's very, very, very prescriptive, which is what I like about it. You can see sort of in black and white, no, this is what we're doing and this is what we're not doing, and here's how we can get better.
Excellent. All
right, so we've talked a little bit about the two dashboards. This is sort of, or the two different sections, I guess. So we'll talk in just a little bit more black and white here on the differences between them. So they are both very important pieces available within ServiceNow for measuring the health of your CMDB. As Mark mentioned, the data foundations dashboards are available in the store. They're free. Anybody can go and get them. And as I mentioned, there's a version 2, which sort of expanded the number of metrics that were in there. So I encourage you, if you're watching this video and you don't have those dashboards yet, go and get them. Just getting them and having a quick look. We've seen many customers get sort of an insight into just low-hanging fruit, or things that they might not have realized they should be doing. And some of the things in there are actually quite easy to fix. And when you do that, you go in and do the fix. For the data foundations dashboards, they run a job once a day, which updates those metrics. So you'll see, you can go and manually rerun the job, or just wait a day, and you'll see your scores improve as you make changes to specific areas that might not be in the shape they need to be.
And I just want to say, we'll put a link to that dashboard here at this point, so you can kind of download it right here.
Yeah, great. They are very prescriptive, meaning the metrics are fixed. You can't go in and change them or put filters on them, which is good and bad. And for some customers, they may have very legitimate reasons why they do something a little bit different than we say they should, and the way we measure it in some of the metrics. And you can't sort of get around that with the data foundations dashboard. So in some metrics, some customers may be showing a poor score, where really they need to have it that way for the uniqueness of their business case.
Yeah, so it's our prescribed approach to those metrics. They can't alter those metrics the way they're calculated, and that's intentional. So we have a objective rating in those metrics.
Right. And so if we were to go and to, take a look at a customer X and just to, without any other context, try and have an idea of how, what shape their CMDB is in, those metrics, the ones that you would see in the Data Foundations dashboards, that's what we would use internally as sort of a starting point. In the dashboards, you also get some widgets, and we'll see all this in the demo, so I won't spend too much time on that. Same with the playbooks, which are fantastic, and we'll take a look at those in the demo. And in terms of who would consume them in your organization, because of the prescriptive nature of those metrics, in general, you're going to see some of your scores potentially be lower. And if you were showing them to senior IT management or CIO, in some cases, you'd say, well, this shows that it's a 40%, but really because of A, B, and C, it really isn't. That kind of becomes a bit of a spaghetti conversation. And so the metrics are great for folks who are close, working on the CMDB on a daily sort of operational basis. They can consume that, understand what they need to do to get better. Mark, for the CMDB Health Dashboard then?
Yeah, so the CMDB Health Dashboard, in contrast, it's been in the platform for a long, long time. And there's a lot more configurability to the dashboard where customers can include or exclude certain CIs, for example. So if they know CIs are not good quality, they just exclude them and improve their metrics right then and there. We focus on what we call currency, correctness, and completeness of the data, but it doesn't go much further beyond that. It just is a very basic set of metrics. There are some more advanced features like desired states or scripted audits, which do require you to have some knowledge of the structure of the data and design those policies. Those states are basically like policies, and apply them. And those can be mixed in with the reports as well. And a lot of the CMDB Health dashboards are suitable for your external audience because you can kind of tailor them. They're not, an external point of view. They're your internal point of view on what you characterize as quality, current, complete, and correct. Then you can, of course, use that as a internal communication methods to your leadership.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's get into the demo.
So this is the newest version of the CMDB Data Foundations dashboards. This has been downloaded from the store, installed in the instance. And let me close that out. And we can see there's 4 tabs that share or that our metrics are spread across for the CMDB. And I'll jump over to the CSDM one after and show that. But so we've got best practices, customization, data management practices, and ITSM processes. And so how these metrics work are basically, they're looking for, air quotes, bad things in your CMDB. So hardware CIs with serial numbers is one of the ones that we have here. And what this is looking at is a serial number field on hardware CIs like servers being populated. So discovery, other discovery tools, whether it's ServiceNow Discovery or something else, will go through somebody's IT infrastructure and populate the CMDB with hardware CIs. And they should always have serial numbers. It's a key field. We know it's very important, lifecycle management. And it's looking at ones that are with an operational status of being active, which is essentially operational status of 1. We talked about prescriptive ones before, right, Mark, where these dashboards, you can't go and change things. And one thing that some customers have is they may use a custom status field. They might say, well, for us, for whatever reason, we don't use operational status of 1, we use 99. These queries can't really account for that. So that's just something to be aware of, that how these dashboards are today. They are very fixed in that you're sort of using the out of the box status codes in order to get sort of good numbers here.
Yeah. And so if customers aren't familiar with what to do to improve these numbers, right? But if they aren't good and they're not sure why, what do they do?
Yeah. Great question. So we've got a remediation playbook here. And so you can see, so all of these metrics really, so before I get into the playbook, all of these metrics, I'll just quickly say, have a result here. And the result is always 0 to 100%. So when we go and run the query, we're looking for bad stuff. So in this case, we're looking for hardware CIs that don't have a serial number. And in this case, we can see down here in this sort of test data instance, there's 101,000 CIs that are missing a serial number. So that gives a result of 0%. And there's some background math on how that, how do we take a raw number here and convert it into a result between 0 and 100, and every metric has its own way that it does that. But you'll get a score between 0 and 100 and a priority. And not every metric is equal. So some of them, like serial numbers, is actually more important than others. So services with owners, even if this was a 0% score, you might find that the hardware CIs is rated critical versus services with owners is rated high.
Right.
And that's sort of the ServiceNow recommended, if you're going to, all things being equal, fix this one first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
okay. So we prioritize them from a priority standpoint, critical to low.
Yep. Okay. And then, yeah, if you want to fix them, the playbooks are fantastic.
Now, what's the origin of these playbooks? I know there's a lot of folks out there that kind of know what they're doing and they've done this a long time and this is their career. What is really contained here?
Yeah, and it's those folks you're talking about. So we've got product success teams, sort of internal teams here at ServiceNow, where they live and breathe this stuff. So they're working with all swaths of customers on a daily basis. And they are true experts in implementation and in helping customers work through issues that they have. And so that team actually put these playbooks together. So we worked with them on refining the metrics, and they had really good input into the metrics themselves. It wasn't only the business unit, the folks who make the product. It was with our folks who are hands-on with customers and refining how we measure what health is. And then those teams, they're ones who help customers who have real problems with their CMDB. And so they capture that knowledge into these playbooks. And so these are linked off all of the metrics, and you can see the table of contents here. And really what they do is they talk about what is the metric. So, a customer might think, why do I care if I don't have serial numbers on a hardware asset? Or why do I care about an orphaned relationship? Or, some of them are a little more self-evident than others, but these playbooks give you a summary of why it's important, right? So serial numbers are in asset management, and it helps, helps you, your mean time to resolve, because you can identify CIs faster, so on and so forth. They have upstream causes. So these are just sort of general reasons why, you might have a problem with that specific metric. So in this case, discovery pattern, right? There might be a problem with how you've configured discovery or whatever tool you're using to import your hardware. Impacts to that, impacts on business. I can see these are very in depth. And then there's remediation plays. So there's, in many of these playbooks, there's additional scripts to do some additional analysis. There's ones in here. Here's a link to the fixed script, and it'll give you some output, and then what to do to go and resolve that. So if you determine discovery is the issue, option A, go through and do this stuff. If it's a third-party integration, go do option B. So there's a lot of great info in here that really can help you go through and get to resolution on these issues, not just be aware of the problem, but help you fix it.
Yeah, I like that it gets into so much detail, because you could drive down into the level of detail. Yeah, and you even provide an executive summary. So if I have to make a case to make the change, or to go to the other folks to help have them help me improve these metrics, I have a case I can make, with my executive, my leadership.
Absolutely. And our internal teams can reference these, and partners can reference these. So, if you're a customer and you put in the dashboards and realize, okay, we've got some issues here, but your teams don't have the bandwidth or the technical expertise to go through and actually fix this stuff, these are still a great starting point where you can go and then engage expert services or a partner to help you resolve your issues.
Yeah. And we keep those up to date as we learn or new product features come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The team goes in and has updated, and like we say, in August, we just added a bunch of new ones. So there were new ones created just within the last couple of months.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the other thing that the dashboards have are these performance analytics widgets. So we can see, and there's for hardware CIs, missing serial numbers. We've talked about this one. Here's some more detail on that. So you can see it's Windows servers, the different types of servers in this test data. They're all kind of the same here, but in your instance, you might see, oh, Windows servers are the problem. Everything else we're getting serial numbers populated. So you can dig into these and actually see the individual records that are missing serial numbers and go from there. So this is all kind of test data, which is why it's not why it's fairly even numbers,
Yeah.
records, but you can click show records in the upper right here. And this is probably on a slower instance. Oh, it's not too bad. And you can actually see everything. Well, look, all these serial numbers are missing. So you can drill in and this really helps in doing your troubleshooting. So this is all built into these dashboards, which are free.
Excellent.
And so I'll just quickly flip to the other tab. So customization is looking like, are you using standard naming? Do you have too many custom tables or fields? Starts to look at some relationship types as well.
Well, that one's an interesting one too, because I hear a lot of customers that are trying to get quote unquote back to out of the box condition. Yep. They've customized their stuff so much, yep. they don't even know what out of the box is. So this kind of helps them in that journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Some customers have customized stuff in the past, which we didn't have out of the box. So they were, had a very legitimate reason to maybe make some new tables or look at how the relationships are, fields. And now, though, we have some things out of the box, and so they should really start to look at migrating to that. And in other cases, there's customers who just didn't realize that it was already there out of the box, and they went ahead and made their own stuff, which is, at the time, there's typically somebody's got a reason for doing all that extra work, but it does can potentially hurt you a little bit down the line.
Well, yeah, because we've expanded our use of the data, our basically normalization of the data has improved over the years. So yeah, new products that expect the certain data to be in a certain place.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Data management practices, things like having your CIs come in via the identification reconciliation engine. So these are things that we have in place where, if you're bringing in data, use the IRE. It will do some checks on the IRE and help deduplicate things and make sure your data is good coming in. And you can bring in data not through the IRE, which would be, when I talk about the bad things. So in this particular test instance, they are really not bringing in their data through the IRE. So that would be something that they would want to look at, and it's priority high here.
Yeah, and customers can learn about the IRE and some of the database CMDB features when they take the CMDB course.
Yeah, absolutely. That all that stuff, that the courses, you take the foundation courses and things in that as you're learning that, you'll see that show up in metrics here, because it's important and we want to measure it.
Yeah.
Lastly is ITSM processes. So, when we showed the health, the really cool benefits, the correlation metrics, we get a lot of those were ITSM related. And so, yeah, you can have the best CMDB in the world, but if you're not using CIs on incidents and changes, you're really not getting a lot of benefit out of it. So we measure that here and just want to make sure that you are, in fact, using your CMDB data on stuff that ServiceNow is helping deliver value for, in this case, keeping your systems up and running. So
yeah, I meet a lot of customers have defined services, but they don't connect any of them to their CIs, kind of like what this particular data suggests. So they don't ever get to the point where there's a real root cause, something actually in the data center in which is causing their problem. In their data center or in a cloud data center, it doesn't really matter, because CIs work in both.
Yep. So this helps highlight that. So last thing I feel like we're going a little long on time, so I'm going to blow through CSDM here. But CSDM so it's a separate dashboard. When you download from the store, you get both together. So it's CMDB and CSDM. And so in CSDM, we have these 5 foundation, crawl, walk, run, fly tabs. Same thing, different metrics. They've got playbooks. They do the results the same way. 0 is bad, 100 is good. And they've got the PA metrics down below.
Yeah. And I noticed that the crawl, walk, run, fly is really aligned to our implementation, CSDM implementation methodology.
Yeah. Scott Lamb, who's, sort of one, Mark, you as well, but there are a few folks who are really key in developing and growing, managing CSDM here at ServiceNow. And they were, Scott really owned this part of the data foundations dashboards as well. So he helped craft this, and he made sure this was, 100% aligned with everything else that we've been publishing and teaching about CSDM. So we'll just flip through the other tabs. There's few, on a lot of these tabs, there's fewer metrics, but it just really helps get you along your CSDM journey, where you can just see some of these different tables. And a lot of what we check for here are just our tables. Are these sort of very specific CSDM tables populated, and are they referencing and having proper relations with other CSDM tables? And so some of them, it's sort of a two-way check. Do we have application services with business service offerings, and do we have business service offerings with application services, things like that. So as you get in and start to improve this, or start to use these tables and make sure the relationships are the right way, these metrics sort of in tandem will go up quickly together.
Excellent.
And that's
all the way up to fly.
Yeah, all the way up the fly. Yeah, where you're just, you're at the pinnacle of your journey, and we got some of the best test data in here where it's really changing. But yeah. So that's it. That's really it for the data foundations dashboards. And so hopefully, my biggest takeaway I hope you get is, if you don't have them, go out and get them and take a look and really start with the easy, lower hanging fruit and go from there. But these really are sort of a different counterpoint to what we see with the CMDB Health dashboards. I'd say that's safe to say. Is that fair, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. So to get to the CMDB dashboards, you just type in CMDB dashboard in your navigator, and what you'll see is the 3 different views here. And that's where we can go and look at the metrics based on everything in the CMDB, by service or by group. And these are special groups. They're called health groups that you can create that basically provide metrics for groups of CIs that you want to single out. But let's go into the CMDB view here first. And what you're able to see here on the health dashboard is the completeness, compliance, and correctness of the data. As the difference between this and the new data foundations dashboards is that this is somewhat configurable, and you can kind of define what these metrics really mean. And you can, of course, slice and dice this data. So you can make these metrics look really good because you're excluding things that are bad within the calculations here.
Like I think of this, Mark, as this is a view, just sort of an internal, a view of what you think is important. And it's a smaller subset than what we look at with the other dashboards.
Yes.
But it's more just sort of what we care about, whereas the dashboards is a little bit more of a view of what every CMDB should have. And it's certainly a broader set of metrics, I think.
That's right. And it's not as specific, this is a pretty broad number here. And what it means can be highly defined and tweaked by every customer. So what compliance means is really based on some elaborate rules you would set up on current state analysis. So you look at the state of the data, and then that, of course, would basically look at the change in the data that you get from the score. So these are the 3 different scores that we have, and you can look at specific CIs. So you can kind of target, let's say, just the cluster node, for example, and see the quality of those specific CIs, and you can see a score looks very different. But now we're only looking at a small subset of the data based on that CI alone, not all of the different CIs in the system. So it's a little bit different, of course. And a couple big differences. We don't track this data over time. There's no trending analysis at all. It's just a static view of the score. It does not use PA or the out-of-the-box dashboards. So that's something to consider if you want to see trends. Of course, that's not really here. We also have the relationship help information. And so this looks at your relationships overall. And if you have duplicate relationships, orphan relationships that don't have one or the other connection on either side, so they're just kind of sitting out there without a CI connected, and stale relationships, things that haven't been updated in a while based on discovery or other data sources that you're expecting to feed into that data. So this is how you can kind of look at the specific data down here, and And the last thing I want to kind of cover here in this view is that you've got the jobs that are running. By default, when you install the CMDB, these are not running, so you're going to go and enable them. But there's a number of different jobs that basically provide these calculations and drive that data into the dashboards themselves.
Is there a way, Mark, from this dashboard, what's the best way if you wanted to, and I think you might just be showing it right now, if you wanted to zoom in on the offenders that are dragging a certain score down?
Yeah, so that's kind of where you get into some of the details down below here. If you look at completeness, compliance, and correctness, the specific CIs that are contributing to the score are selectable. So here you can see the top 10 incident generators. This is just something we configured out of the box. Top 10 change generators. And when you look at the CI computer, that's the CI that's contributing the most. If you click on this, it'll give you the list of CIs directly, and you can see that the metric is basically filtered out. So you can slice and dice this data even further if you need to say, okay, you know, these are things that I need to look at. Maybe this is a specific model that's causing your problem, so you can further divide that and conquer and fix this data as you need to.
Yeah, that's great, and sort of nice to see that similar functionality that we've got in the Data Foundation dashboards as well. You know, the overall scores are great, but you really do need that detail to try and remediate the issues.
That's right. Yeah, and of course, it doesn't tell you how to fix them, or you know what I think I like about the Data Foundations dashboard. You got the playbook. So here you're just seeing there's bad data. It's bad. You don't know why. You don't know what to do about them. There's not a lot of guidance built into this, right? It's you know, why are we getting orphan relationships? Why is it stale? You know, so
yeah.
And the other thing, I just wanted to kind of show you some of the differences in the views. This is the service view here. And what this does, it basically provides you a service hierarchy approach to the data. And you can see everything looks peachy keen, but you don't necessarily have all the CIs, all the, what I would say, the infrastructure and physical elements of the portfolio kind of called out here. So everything at this level, there's just a much narrower set. This is all pretty much logically created and not necessarily something that you would see so, you know, discovery problems, for example, against. So this is a bit higher. And the last thing, the last view that you have that I mentioned is this group view. And this group view is where you can create very specific health groups. And I haven't created one, but let's we can do that real quick just to show you how to do it. So there's no data here currently. What you can do is when you go to create a CMDB group, so come in here and I got a bunch of groups that I already have, but let's say I want to focus in on just one CI class or maybe a subset within my group. I can create a new group, and when I go through this process, I give it a name, my group, and I am able to say health group. So if you don't change this, it will never show up on that dashboard. So there's the regular groups, which are the default, CMDB workspace groups that are there for the workspace processes. It'll show up in the workspace that we now have out there. And then they're health groups. So I'm going to create a health group here and submit that, and that's going to create a new group. And that's the one I just created here. And we'll go in and define what CIs I want in there. And the way these groups work is this only works on encoded queries. So you'll have to be very specific on what that condition is. All right, so I'm just going to do really basic. So you can see these are the CIs that you want to put in that query. So you can do a number of ands or conditions in here to kind of group things together how you like. But I'm going to go after just the regular server. You can search that by the name or the table name. So you can see I got to the right one here, and there's subclasses here. But here's, you can create the classes, add additional filter conditions, submit that. And of course, this is the group that it's going to populate. And so now that I created that, we'll we can see all of the different CIs in that group. So if I want to just validate the query is right before I go in and look at the health scores. So a little bit of a detour here on setting up a group. A lot of people may or may not know how to do this, but now you're looking at 89 CIs, if that's the right expectation. What I also would suggest is you can filter out the operational if you need to, but this by default won't. So that's another difference. I think the out of the Data Foundations Health Dashboards does look at the operational status and only looks at operational. As this one, by default, that may not be the case. You don't have to look at just the operational status. You can include everything. So you got to be careful about that. So now that my group is created, what I'm going to do is go back to the health dashboards. And look at group view, and you're not going to see anything initially because we haven't run the results against the group. So this is where you have to go to the health dashboard jobs and run the job in order to see the results. So for in this case, I'd have to go in if I wanted a new completeness score, go ahead and do that and execute that now. And that will update my scores. So I'm not going to wait around for that to execute, but in the background, the group will then, oh, there we go. That was really quick. So we already got scores for the completeness, but that's kind of how it works. Those jobs happen at night. You are able to calculate the scores and see them through various means, through the service, through the CIs directly at a very class level, or by groups, which combine classes or filter out things as you need to.
That's awesome. I do like that ability to apply filters and zero in a little bit more on what you need. So great to have this in the tool belt as well as the broader Data Foundations dashboards, which are definitely a little more rigid and prescriptive in what they're looking at.
Yeah, and I know in the future we've already got on our roadmap. In the future, we're going to be combining these in some way and bringing them into the workspace. But we'll save that one for later when that's a little bit closer to delivery.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, it's still a little ways off.
I think this is all we have to show today. And if you have any further questions, you can go ahead and comment on this video or go to the community. You'll see a link to the community site, and we can answer questions there. And certainly we'll have a link also in the description for downloading the Data Foundations dashboard. And that's pretty easy to do too. If you haven't been to the store, you just go to the store on ServiceNow and just do a search on Data Foundations. You'll be able to find it pretty quickly.
Yeah, Foundations is kind of a not commonly used word amongst different stuff that we have at ServiceNow. So same, Mark, when you showed the jobs for the CMDB Health Dashboard, that's similar for the Data Foundations dashboards. They have their jobs that run. And when these dashboards get installed, the jobs run at midnight. If you wanted to kick off that job and have it run and populate right away after you install it, just go to schedule jobs and search for Foundations, and you'll see those jobs will pop up in the list as well.
So hopefully this is helpful for the folks that are out there that are looking to improve your CMDB data quality. We see this as a critical aspect for all the products that you use on our platform, and data is lifeblood. That's the I in IT, I like to say. So without information, you can't do your job.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to remember that one.
Thanks, Callan.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Mark.